I think the small galaxies in this game on average have better stars than the large galaxies. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. With the amount of stars each of the larger galaxies contains, it's a lot harder to keep the quality up and much more likely to lead to objectives that feel like they're filler. In the previous segment, I discussed all of the small galaxies that exist in the domes, and I spoke fairly highly of them. On this segment, I'll be going over the hungry Lumas as well as the green stars. Or more specifically, the challenges that they provide. Remember how many of the hidden stars across the stages requires you to feed a bunch of hungry Lumas star bits in order to get them to transform into a galaxy? Well, throughout the Comet Observatory, you'll bump into 7 different hungry Lumas that will require the same thing. Only in this case, rather than grabbing star bits that you had collected in a specific stage, they're more keeping track of the total star bits you've collected throughout the game. If you're playing the game the way I do, and just going through every single galaxy in order and completing every galaxy's star before moving on, then you'll realistically be able to have enough star bits to get to every one of these hungry Lumas just as you pass through them. But if you're jumping around a lot more or trying to move ahead and skipping certain galaxies or stars, you may find yourself having to backtrack or farm for some star bits. But in either case, it is probably not going to be that large of a waste of time because there are plenty of star bits throughout the game. But let's see how the 7 hungry Luma star galaxies compare to the ones that exist within the domes. The first Luma sits outside the terrace, it requires 400 star bits, and it will give you access to Sweet Sweet Galaxy. Hot dang is this one good. It's just a proper platforming challenge, and it's made all the more better with the classic Mario Bros. 3 tune. I think it's hilarious that up until this point in the game, if you went through every single star one by one, this is literally the most absurd thing you'd have run into. And I think it's even more hilarious that if you continue throughout the game, you might not see anything as absurd as this again. Maybe Toy Time Galaxy, but that's about it. I haven't played Super Mario Galaxy 2 in a very long time, but based off of my memory, I feel like this is something that would fit much better into Super Mario Galaxy 2. I haven't really scored anything up until this point, but I'm almost inclined to say this is a 10 out of 10 if I was scoring stuff. And in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Sweet Sweet Canyon was one of my favorite stages, and that was largely because it was based off of this stage. At least I think it was. I don't know if there's anything official that confirms that or not. Either way, I always eat up these dessert themes in video games. Pun entirely intended. Moving on, we get to Sling Pod Galaxy. A very sticky situation. This one fits in with Loop-de-Loop, Rolling Green, and Bubble Breeze Galaxy. It's all about pointer controls. It's a pretty intense pull star challenge, and at the same time you're using these sticky sling pods to fling yourself across through the level. And similar to all the other motion control and pointer control gimmicks in the game, I think this is really fun. Also, I'm not sure if it's just me, but I feel like at the very end when you're flinging the sling pod between the turning fireballs, it actually gets very difficult. I lost a small handful of lives here actually. And honestly, between Loop-de-Loop and Rolling Green and this one, the motion and pointer control challenges really lifted a lot of the difficulty in the early game. And I can't say this for certain, but I'm pretty sure Sling Pod might be the worst of them. And of course, by worst, I mean hardest, which means it's the best. And the funny thing is, because it's so early in the game, it almost feels like the first secret area challenge you got to in Mario Sunshine, where you didn't realize this was about to take 20 to 30 minutes of your time. But hey, at least there's checkpoints here. And the Luma to get to it obviously sits outside the fountain and requires 400 star bits. The next Luma, however, requires 600 star bits, and it sits just outside the kitchen. Feeding our hungry friend will grant you access to Drip Drop Galaxy, with a star that's titled Giant Eel Outbreak. This is a pretty fun underwater challenge. It's very similar to the fight against Kingpin, but obviously this one comes a little bit earlier in the game, so it's a lot easier. In saying that, I don't even think it's crazy easy or anything. It'll definitely take you some time, patience, and a little bit of luck to figure out. But you basically get to swim around with a green shell and fling it towards the eels and defeat them all. There'll be some bullet-billed torpedoes that'll chase after you every now and then, but they're pretty easy to avoid. But in general, while the eels of Jolly Roger Bay freak me out, these ones just don't intimidate me enough to make this challenge any more enjoyable. But don't get me wrong, it's not a bad star, it's not a bad objective, and honestly, compared to the rest of the game up to this point, it realistically ranks up there for challenging objectives, and even boss fights, but I don't think I enjoy it as much as the small galaxies that I covered in the previous segment, as well as the ones that I've covered here so far. And moving on straight into the next one, you need 800 star bits to get behind the bedroom and unlock Big Mouth Galaxy. Okay, so the coolest thing about Big Mouth Galaxy is just the way that the galaxy looks. The objective here is titled Big Mouth's Gold Bait. The whole planet is a giant fish with a big mouth. I feel like this one has the same mysterious vibes that Deep Dark Galaxy had. That eerie discomfort feeling. It's not a haunted theme by any means, but it feels like it. You're meant to swim into the cave, collect the 5 pieces of the launch star, all the while avoiding the eels, and being cognizant of the jellyfish as well as the underwater tornadoes. If you get the launch star, it'll blast you off to the other side where you're able to grab the golden shell, at which point it's easy enough to make your way back towards the beginning where that golden chest was. Launch the golden shell at the chest, and apparently Captain Toad was there first and got locked into that chest, but thankfully he has the star for you. I kind of feel similar about this Big Mouth Galaxy as I did to Drip Drop Galaxy. Like, the mission was good, the setting was alright, but it's not really anything out of the ordinary. I'd still be comfortable enough to say it's one of the better stars in the first half of the game, but again, most of the small galaxies that I've covered up until this point are probably comfortably sitting in the top 20 or 30% of all the stars. Whereas this one and the previous one are probably top 40 or 50%. Thankfully, it's about to get a lot better. Sitting outside of the engine room is the Hungry Luma that requires 1000 star bits and will grant you access to Sand Spiral Galaxy. In my opinion, this one's a lot of fun. The mission is titled Choosing a Favorite Snack, and you basically have a choice between Boo Mario and Bee Mario for this. Seeing as how Boo Mario is criminally underutilized in this game, that's the one I go for. It's not even that challenging of a star, and that's including the second half where you get the invincibility power up and you gotta make your way towards the middle. But I think in general having a type of obstacle course like this is really enjoyable. Admittedly, this probably should have been a star inside Ghostly Galaxy, because again, Boo Mario was criminally underutilized, but having it over here, giving you the option between using Bee Mario and Boo Mario, as well as the final invincibility star section, makes this one of the more memorable ones for me. I don't think it really makes the cut for me difficulty-wise, but the uniqueness of the utilization of the gimmicks makes it very enjoyable. And to continue on with the Boo theme, the next Hungry Luma sits outside of the gate, and when it eats 1200 starbits, it will unlock Boo's Boneyard Galaxy, where you once again get to race against the spooky speedster. This time, however, it's a 2D Mario race, or more specifically, a 2D Boo Mario race. The big gimmick is that every so often you'll bump into a wall that'll require you to go invisible so you can pass through it. Once again, this one is pretty easy, but it's the enjoyment of the power-up that makes me love it. But in saying that out loud, I'm starting to think that the Hungry Luma Small Galaxies were not as enjoyable as the other ones so far. Sweet Sweet Galaxy, Sling Pod Galaxy being the only exceptions, but Drip Drop, Big Mouth, Sand Spiral, and Boo's Boneyard, while all being good in their own right and better than a lot of the game, just aren't as enjoyable as the small galaxies that I covered in the previous segment. But that being said, the final Hungry Luma kinda makes up for it. Sitting outside of the Garden Dome is a Hungry Luma asking for 1600 starbits, and it will give you access to Snowcap Galaxy. Okay, so this one has the Mario Galaxy vibes. It looks like the gateway, the starting section, Good Egg Galaxy, and all of that. But it's actually hard as heck, which is very rare for this aesthetic. The mission here is Star Bunnies in the Snow. You gotta capture 3 bunny rabbits. That's it. Except they're hidden all around this little planetoid, mostly in the snow, and you only get 150 seconds to find them all. The problem is not only do you have to find them, you have to catch them. And really the only way you can get away with doing that is by hitting all the switches that are hidden in the snow. This will create a little hole on the side of the planet so that you can chase the bunny rabbits into. Again, after you find them. You'll also get access to a fire flower which you can use to shoot the snowmen, which will unlock one of the bunny rabbits. And similarly, you'll eventually get a green shell to open up a chest. But really, the issue with this is that the time limit is very stingy, and you really have to do it a few times to figure out exactly where everything is. It's not the worst challenge, I mean, don't get me wrong, it took me about 4 attempts, but it can be extremely annoying, which obviously is something I enjoy. But I'll admit the main reason I enjoyed it is because I felt there was a big puzzle-solving element to it. This was very different than most stars in the game. I mean, of course it was. There was a time limit, and that time limit actually ran out on me multiple times, whereas normally it doesn't even get to halfway. But even despite the time limit, I thought the problem solving was a nice touch. There aren't really that many puzzles throughout Mario Galaxy. Heck, there aren't that many scavenger hunts in Mario Galaxy either. This is a small planetoid, so it's not like one of those giant sandbox scavenger hunts that you'd get used to if you played 3D Mario. But I think the puzzle solving, mixed with the search, mixed with the action chase, with the ever-present countdown timer overhead, really makes this one stick out. Looking at these Hungry Luma stars as a whole, I'd say that if we considered the previous segment, the one with the small galaxies that took place inside the domes, as an average score of maybe 9 out of 10 across all of those small galaxies, I'd say these Hungry Lumas were probably close to a 7 out of 10. maybe a 7.5. So they're not phenomenal, but nowhere near being bad. But let's cover the green stars real quick. Alright, so in Battle Rock Galaxy, Dusty Dune Galaxy, and Buoy Base Galaxy, there were hidden stars in each of those that contained a green star. Collecting the 3 green stars would get you a green launch star in the Comet Observatory that would take you up to an oddly shaped planetoid. There are 3 green Lumas on this planetoid, and each one will send you to a small galaxy. You can technically do these in any order. The first one I got was Rolling Gizmo Galaxy. This is the 3rd star in the game with this gimmick. I think I previously said the one in Melty Molten Galaxy might have been the hardest one, but I'm pretty sure I only said that because I forgot how hard this one was. I feel like in every step of this challenge, I kept losing a life and then having to redo it like 4 or 5 times until I figured out how to get to the next section. I lost 4 or 5 lives alone just making it through this first zigzag. Also, I don't think I was going fast enough to hit the blocks in the second segment, so I was wondering what I was doing wrong and had to do it again. Turns out I just needed more speed. Keep in mind while you're doing all this work, you're sitting there wiggling your controller around like a maniac. Or I guess not wiggling, just tilting. But you know what I mean. I think by the time I made it through these gray blocks, I had maybe lost 10 lives already. And that was the easy part. Although in fairness, that easy part was necessary because it gets you used to the control when you get to the later section. And oh yeah, when you fall off in these challenges, you start from the beginning. Which means when I ran into a Bob-omb party, I had to go through the zigzag bridge again. But in typical classic platforming difficulty challenge style, I was able to get through it pretty easily and make my way over to the Bob-ombs again. And at that point, I was able to get through everything and make it to the flag because by that point, I had fallen off so many times that I was extremely comfortable with my controls. Next up is Loop-de-Swoop Galaxy, the galaxy's greatest wave. I love these names, it sounds like a child made them. So this is a harder version of Loop-de-Loop. You're surfing on the manta ray yet again, only this time the turns are a lot more sharp and the width is a lot narrower. Also, you have a 3-minute timer tops. Honestly, I love this. I'm surprised they didn't capitalize on all this hype during the time of the Wii and make a whole game out of this. Although it probably would have sold terribly, but at the bare minimum they should have had a multiplayer mode in this game included. I think one of the Mario parties has a few minigames like this. Maybe multiple Mario parties have similar ones to this too. But I don't know, it always feels watered down in Mario Party. Either way, these green stars are 2 out of 3 for awesomeness so far. What can I say? I love motion controls. And finally, we have Bubble Blast Galaxy, the Electric Labyrinth. This one involves the bubble push gimmick. On the starting platform, you'll have 5 pipe mazes you can jump through. You gotta go through each of these and collect a launch star segment at the end of it. Some of the easier paths will just involve rotating platforms along your way, some stagnant spike balls that should be easy enough to avoid, but there are ones that involve dynamic moving obstacles that are a little bit more difficult. And keep in mind, you're surrounded by an electric fence, so you can't really go too close to the ends either. I think the one with the electric fences is probably the hardest one to get through in the beginning, but they're all very much doable. That is of course until you get to the launch star and you get to the second half, the actual challenge. Almost without warning, you start getting chased by a bullet bill. I'll tell you what, I got through this in one try, but I could not believe that I made it to the end. I was moving so fast. I had no idea I had it in me, but when there's a bullet bill on your tail and you just keep getting more and more shot towards you, you kinda just gotta keep moving. This was stupidly one of the most adrenaline-filled stars for me in the game, and I loved it all the more for it. I think all 3 green star challenges were very fun, and they were good implementations of the motion controls. Add onto it the super fun challenge that was Sweet Sweet Galaxy, the crazy difficult challenge that was Sling Pod Galaxy, the frustratingly difficult challenge that was Snowcap Galaxy, and the average to above average experiences from Big Mouth Galaxy, Drip Drop Galaxy, Sand Spiral Galaxy, and Boo's Boneyard Galaxy. And you get a solid 10 small galaxies that don't quite live up to the ones that I covered in the previous segment, those being the small galaxies that exist within the domes. But all in all, they are still very fun. They live up to the hype set by the secret stars from Mario 64, as well as the secret shines from Super Mario Sunshine. Obviously over here they're less of a secret and more of an additional challenge, but Galaxy is also less of an exploration game and more streamlined, so it makes a lot of sense. At the end of the day, however, the best thing you can ask from these additional stars is that they complement the main game and make it better, providing an extra challenge where it's needed, a more focused objective when it's available, and in general, a little bit of a break from the status quo. And while these 22 small galaxies that I've covered in the previous 2 segments have varying levels of uniqueness, varying levels of challenge, and varying types of objectives, I can comfortably say without a doubt that they were an excellent addition to this game, and more specifically to the early half of this game. Mario Galaxy takes a very long time to kick up a gear, but the small galaxies, at least the early ones for me, really helped me get through that slow start. That being said, I want to save my discussions on the Comet Observatory as well as the Bowser fights for the end of this retrospective. So we're going to cheat a little bit and jump straight ahead to the Purple Coin Challenge. I say cheat because technically the purple coins can't be unlocked until after you defeat the final Bowser fight, but I'd rather discuss Bowser later. So let's once again head back to Good Aid Galaxy and go after those coins.